Thank you very much, Sasha. Delighted to hear that Enterprise Nation helped you, but I'm delighted to be in this very smart setting. Just to tell you in kind of an introduction to kind of being here this morning. So Sasha mentioned he is an energy geek, and in fact, as you were saying it this morning, I am a small business geek. So what we do is we help people start and grow their own small businesses. So I am not from the energy industry, I am from the small business industry. So what we did agree is what I'd love to talk to you about is, I guess, as the kind of title implies, what we think a smarter Britain is from a small business perspective. Small businesses, vitally important to the UK. There's 5 million of them. Record numbers of small businesses operating. They have, over the past kind of 10 to 15 years, been quite confident. I'm going to talk a little bit about how they're feeling at the moment. But I wanted to set out 3 things in terms of what we think makes for a smarter Britain. And then I will give some comments on hopefully what that means for the energy sector. I know Sasha said that hopefully myself and Sir David, and I know Adair Turner's kind of coming, will hopefully be a caffeine injection. But I actually said to my host when I came in, I am so happy to be at the brewery, not for a night of revelry, but for a morning of talking about smart energy. So I don't know if anyone's ever been upstairs in this building for an evening of corporate dues. Oof. And I was just saying to somebody else, just the last time I came here, I probably shouldn't talk about this, but it was an award ceremony for the creative sector, actually, for lots of marketing agencies. And as I left at what I thought was the very sensible hour of kind of 1 o'clock in the morning, there were people revelling on the dance floor where I just thought, you will really wish you hadn't done that tomorrow morning. So it's delightful to be here with a very caffeine-induced audience this morning. Okay, so let me offer, as I say, Enterprise Nation, we help people start and grow small businesses. 3 things that we think make for a smarter Britain. The first is a global Britain. Now, in light of Brexit, which was a very interesting choice for Britain to make, as a company, actually, we were watching it, and pretty much at kind of 10 to 4, I don't know if anyone else was kind of watching the coverage live, but kind of when BBC called the result, our immediate response is we kind of went out on our blog, went out to our community and said, right, this is now a time for small businesses to do what they do best and trade with the world. You have got to continue to get out to the world and trade. What we literally cannot afford to do is be an isolationist country at this point and stop trading. So as a company, we run Go Global trade missions. So this year we'll have done 5 trade missions. These are pictures from our missions. We've taken fashion entrepreneurs to Berlin. We've taken homewares entrepreneurs to Amsterdam. Next week, we're going to China with 40 amazing British brands to go and be part of something called Singles Day. Have you heard of this? Singles Day requires lots of energy. So last year, they sold £9.2 billion worth of products on one day in China. So it's like China's version of Black Friday, but it's like Black Friday times 5 in terms of volume. So we feel it is super important for small businesses, and the businesses of Britain are responding to this, to get out around the world and sell their wares. We have to stay open, we have to go global. Interestingly, and I know this is being filmed, but I kind of don't mind saying this on record, even though if there are European colleagues in the room, I'd love to get your feedback on this in the discussion. We've done 1 mission to Europe post-Brexit. So in September, we went to Amsterdam. And in our missions, we always do a pop-up shop at the end of the mission. So we take our brands and we literally open a shop and we get them to meet the customers face to face. And in all previous pop-ups we've done, we kind of stand outside, we say, consumers come in, we've got some amazing British brands here and selling to you. And in Amsterdam, we were, for those of you who've been, it's a very big cycling community, so we were literally stopping people off their bikes, come off your bikes, come into our shop. And for the first time that we've ever been on missions, I started to hear consumers say, who's in the shop? And we said, there's lots of British brands coming here to sell, looking to move into the Netherlands market. And the response was, and maybe even the way I'm saying it, you can probably understand what the response was, we're not buying from British brands. You've just chosen to leave the EU, we will not be buying from you. A month ago, we went to the US. We took 25 retail brands to New York. In every single session, we said to American buyers, retailers, accelerators, how do you feel about Brexit? Have you thought about not buying from Britain in view of Brexit? The American response, we don't care whether you're in or out. If your product or service is right, we want to trade. Next week in China, I think we will find the same thing, that the Chinese want to trade with us, whether we're in or out. So I do think that over the next couple of years, British companies will have to look further afield. That's probably not a good thing for energy, actually, because it means flying further. But people will have to look further afield in terms of where consumers are coming from. Technology has been a key enabler to kind of making this happen. So marketplaces that you will know, Amazon, which regardless of what you hear about Amazon in the press, Amazon has been absolutely a friend of the small business owner. So you can be a business run from your kitchen table. If you put your products on the Amazon marketplace, does anyone know how many customers they have coming onto that marketplace? Guesses? This is the interactive bit. Any guess?
200 million.
Oh, do you know, this is why you shouldn't go interactive. When somebody comes in higher, and now my response is not going to sound so good, so it's 130 million. But still, for a small business, that's an incredible kind of market to get access to. So Amazon hugely enabled international trade. I'm hoping we can do a mission with them next year to India. They're hugely growing in India. So if you're a British business looking to get into the Indian market, selling on the Amazon marketplace, you don't have to think, how do I set up fulfillment in India? How do I understand the cultures of doing business? How do I get my products and services with the right VAT or taxes or collection of payment? Amazon takes care of all of that for you. Etsy.com, which you may know as that's America's third largest marketplace now, and Alibaba.com, not as well known yet in the UK, but it's the most incredible company. It's China's pretty much largest company, started by a very diminutive small man called Jack Ma. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of him. He's tiny, he looks about 14 years old, and he's like the world's richest man. He was an English teacher. He started this website, Alibaba.com, and it now pretty much powers trade in China. What I love about this is, again, if you're a British business looking to source from China or sell into China, you do not need to think about setting up infrastructure. You go via Alibaba.com. However, we are big believers, this is why we do these missions, we're big believers is if you are selling into a market, it's very good to visit that territory. And this is why we think missions are so important. So we think global Britain is very good. Online marketplaces have hugely enabled this to happen. So what is the thing that could hold us back? Not that beautiful man, Paul Dark, by the way, even though I did only put this up because I love looking at his face. So ladies and gentlemen, try and not focus on him, try and focus on the bit on the left. So this was, dare I say, the very unhelpful comment that came from Liam Fox, the man responsible for international trade, when he said British businesses are too fat and lazy and spend too much time on the golf course to export. It was said out of context, maybe, and actually there was a brilliant trade minister called Lord Maud, who you may have come across, who actually then was interviewed a couple of days later. And what he said, which I think is much more close to the truth, is he said, you know, Liam Fox wasn't quite saying businesses are fat and lazy to export. What he was saying is British businesses can be a little bit too comfortable in their own domestic market. I think that's phrased much better. But as a company, we're a private company, but we do lobby government, I guess, in terms of on behalf of small businesses. We've just set up a small business task force, and one of our key I guess requests stroke grumbles actually at the moment is the government approach to exporting for small business. We don't have an exporting cheerleader in government. Philip Hammond started it. Theresa May got on a plane to go to China in one of her first things that she did as a Prime Minister. And she said a brilliant statement, which is, I'm going to make sure that the UK is a brilliant leading trading nation. And when she said it, I was like, great, this is going to get small businesses exporting. What we're not seeing is we're not necessarily seeing the follow through from that. So we would love to see, as a company, as a country, we want to see somebody within government who does go around the world, signing trade deals. I know we're not allowed to do that yet, but at least talking about doing trade deals with open countries and kind of flying the flag for exporting. Because if we don't, and I know there's a lot of talk at Smart Energy about changing behaviour, changing culture, what we absolutely have to do, the same thing in the export market, is change behaviour so British companies do think, I'm a domestic business, but I don't need to be very old before I can start to look to go global. And you've seen this with our currency fluctuations. It's now a very good time to be exporting, but what businesses need is the confidence to do it. So one aspect of Smarter Britain is Global Britain. The second is Flexible Britain. And I'm sorry, because these slides literally are just amalgamations of images. I was saying this on the Vox Pop clip. Britain, over the past 5 to 6 years, has been one of the most enterprising nations on earth. We've had over 500,000 people who've started a business each year. And a huge reason as to why that's happened has been technology has been a key enabler. So the sites that I've shown here, Upwork, which you may know, which is where freelancers can go on and essentially pitch for work. People come on and get work from them. Deliveroo, which has kind of enabled self-employment for a lot of people. Uber, but I'm going to come on to that in a second. So technology has been a huge enabler to help people essentially make extra income and start their own business. And one of the reasons people do start their own business, the main reason actually, is for the freedom and flexibility that comes with being your own boss. So what small businesses look for, because they've started a business for that flexibility, they look for flexibility from all of their service providers. And I'm going to come on to that in a minute. But if we look at what could damage potentially that flexibility, you may have seen the ruling last week, Friday, it came out. Did anyone see this ruling? The Uber court ruling. Which has said that Uber drivers, and again, I'd love to get some discussion going on this because in fact, I tweeted it out. The BBC came out saying, right, Uber has ruled that their drivers are employees as opposed to self-employed. And this is a case that just concerned 2 people, so it hasn't gone across the whole of the Uber population. And I tweeted it out saying, courts decide, Uber drivers are employees rather than self-employed, discuss. And somebody replied saying, how does it feel sitting on the fence? And I was like, okay, that's a little bit cheeky. So I will not sit on the fence. My view actually is that Uber drivers are self-employed. And I think, and again, would love to get your comments because I'm sure half of the room will be like, that's disgusting. They're not. They should get benefits. And, if they're being forced to work, they are absolutely employees. But my fear with any court ruling that says people who are flexible, self-employed people have to become employees is you start to lose the flexibility of the self-employed labour market. On the very same day, actually, that the Uber court ruling came out, New York voted as a state to get a maximum cap on freelance earnings in New York State, which again I think is quite a dangerous move because as soon as you start stating caps on freelance working, surely that just avoids why people started as a freelancer in the first place. They kind of started to not have state intervention, to have the freedom and flexibility to choose when they work, how they work, under what conditions they work. So maybe let's discuss that. But I think the law is one of the things that could hinder flexibility. And it's interesting, actually, if you think about kind of what I've said before, so we'd love to see a global smarter Britain. What could hold that back? Lack of government support of a confidence push for exporting. We'd love to see flexibility in the economy. What could hold that back? The legal system. When you see kind of where we're going with small business is it tends to be big institutions who are resisting what is happening in the real economy. So the real economy is getting very flexible. There's lots and lots of little gnats kind of going around, starting businesses, moving very quickly, innovating, disrupting. And big organisations are struggling to deal with this. And therefore, of course, the immediate response is to try and block it and stop it rather than say, let's welcome it, but we have to change systems to let it flourish and continue. So the third thing that we think makes for a smarter Britain is, I guess, what we would call a connected Britain. And there's 2 elements to this. Small businesses connecting with large corporates and small businesses connecting with government, which I'll mention in a minute. But big companies, and for those of you from big companies or who work with big companies, you will be very aware that big companies are slightly concerned at the moment about what's happening in their own industries, to their own supply chains, etc. And they can see a lot of innovation is coming from startups. So, for example, the John Lewis J Lab, which was the first one in all of these kind of big corporate accelerators, the idea was John Lewis said, right, we have got to stay innovative. We're losing footfall in our shops. We're increasing our customers online. What can we do to make sure technology is embedded in our business so we are servicing our customers? And I guess when you've worked for John Lewis for lots of years, you just get into a mindset of this is how we've always done it. So they felt they needed to reach out to the market and call on startups, individuals who've got ideas for improving the retail experience. So JLab is something where small businesses and startups apply, they pitch to get in, and they win essentially a route to market. And we love these corporate accelerators because everybody wins. The big corporate gets the innovation and gets the kind of startup mentality embedded in their business, and the startup gets exactly what they want, which is a route to market and credibility that comes from working with a big company. So those kind of connections we would love to see more between small business and large corporates. And the final element of being connected, is small businesses connected to government. And I show you this picture because Theresa May, beginning of August, so again, the first meeting she had with businesses was with small businesses. So we were delighted. It was like, brilliant. This sets out a great signal that, Theresa May got a hugely, very busy, she's got like a massive job to do. She has to take us out of the European Union, keep us safe, etc. Huge job. But that was a very good sign that she said, right, some of the first people I want to see are small business representative groups, meet with small businesses to find out how you're feeling. Since then, government has gone a bit quiet, as I say, because there's kind of lots going on. So a number of us as organisations have formed a task force to help government, because our position in terms of why we feel government should be connected to small businesses is there was a brilliant book, and I wonder if this does relate kind of to smart energy in a philosophical way. There was a man called Steve Hilton. There is a man called Steve Hilton. That made it sound as if he doesn't exist. You may remember him. He flew back in from California for the Brexit discussion. He was pro-Brexit. He used to be head of strategy for the Prime Minister, David Cameron. And he has written a brilliant book called More Human. And when he was in government, More Human essentially is all of the policy he was trying to implement. And it's a very fat book, but essentially there's one message in this book that he's written, which is, if you are serving customers or constituents, the closer you are to those customers or constituents, the better you can serve them. So if you put loads of barriers between you and who you're trying to serve, you're not going to understand them, you're not going to live in their daily lives, you're not going to know what their buttons are, what they like, what they don't like, it's harder to serve them. And his point is, if you're government, so say you're the business department within government, you have to be with small businesses, know them, understand them in order to legislate and regulate or whatever on their behalf. And what we're saying to government at the moment in terms of making the connections is the better connected you are, government, to small businesses, the better decisions you can make. Because there was an interesting moment actually in that session, which is where there was an entrepreneur kind of sitting not in the picture. And he said, I've got a business. He said to the Prime Minister, I've got a business. He said, you've recently introduced auto-enrolment, national living wage. You've made changes to the tax treatment of dividends. This has all come at me at one time. And this is nothing against the Prime Minister. She used to be the Home Office Minister, so there's no reason why she would have been aware of this. And she said, so literally within the space of 12 months, you had all of these things suddenly to deal with. And he said, yes, I did. And I just thought, if the closer connections are there, government would know, well, actually, we've just introduced this, let's leave it a while, let's do consultation, etc. So when we say connected, the more connected small businesses are to big corporates, the better innovation, the better everybody moves, the better small businesses are connected to government, the better the infrastructure of our economy becomes. So just a final thing I want to say in terms of business, and then I'm going to really quickly come on to what does this mean for energy. And this kind of is my route into kind of what this means for energy. And just to recap, the smarter Britain that we'd love to see, global, connected, flexible. This is something that we're seeing small businesses do a lot more of, which is personalisation. And here I've put it, there's a sportswear called Disrupt, where you can make your own sportswear. It's very big in the jewellery industry, notinthehighstreet.com, do you know that? It's like a haven for personalisation. And it's becoming very popular. And you can see this in independent coffee shops. You go in, even in Starbucks, they want to know your name. Even though there was a brilliant tweet I saw the other day, which is, I think most people know now, when you go into Starbucks, the reason they want to know your name is to personalise your cup. Anyway, apparently somebody overheard a girl, she clearly hadn't been into a Starbucks. So she went in, the guy behind the counter said to her, what's your name? She said, I've already got a boyfriend. He said, good for you, I just want it for your cup. And I was like, classic. So wish I'd been there when I heard that. But everybody is moving towards personalisation, which brings me on, because I'm literally out of time. Final thoughts for kind of what does all of this therefore mean for the energy sector? And I think when I think sort of our relationship with the energy companies and all the behavioural change you're instituting from smart energy, there's a couple of things I feel. One is, first of all, selling to small businesses. Everything that I've said reflects the way in which they want to buy. So they do want flexible packages. Gone are the days where you buy hardware and you're committed for 5 years. No longer do you get shops where you have 5-year leases. Everybody's doing pop-ups, temporary retail, shop shares. Flexibility. Every small business owner I know runs their business in the cloud. They're paying monthly licenses to lots of different technology companies, and these are month in, month out contracts. So they want flexible terms in terms of when they're buying. They also, this point about connected, want to be connected to their suppliers. And you may think, well, what on earth does that mean? And it just reminds me of, Microsoft is a big, lovely sponsor of ours. And actually, before I say this, is there anyone here from Microsoft? I don't know why I do this, because it's still being filmed, isn't it? Is there anyone here from Microsoft? Right. So a couple of years ago, they said, would you come and speak at this big event, which is our sales team, and we'd like you to come and speak about what does the small business customer want from Microsoft. So I went to Brighton, the beautiful big hotel in Brighton that's right opposite the sea, the Grand? So it was there in their ballroom. So it was a Friday morning. So I arrived and the setting was like this. Claire Barkley, brilliant woman, head of Microsoft Small Business, was interviewing me and another chap of the view from the customer. And I looked out on 400 hungover faces. So they'd clearly been partying the night before. This was kind of like okay, this is sales day. This is how we're thinking of selling more. So Claire Barkley said to me, right, Emma, how do we sell more stuff to small businesses? And I said, well, the thing is, you don't really sell to them. What you've got to do is understand their needs, educate them, give them the content to feel that they're more supported in how they grow their business, campaign on their behalf, so understand what their issues are, be their voice. Anyway, I went through all of this and I could see these faces looking at me as if to say, what on earth are you talking about? What we do is we sell stuff. We go in, we sell it. And I understand that, and I'm not saying we have lost the art of selling. What I'm saying is small businesses want to buy from suppliers in whose beliefs and values they have trust and where they feel there's a connection from that supplier. And just as a final indication of that, and I haven't got a slide, but if you could see it in an image way, there's two businesses literally within a 2-minute vicinity of this very building. I've walked past both of them today. One called WeWork and one called Regis. And you will all have heard of Regis. It's a serviced office operator started by a brilliant British entrepreneur called Mark Dixon. He still runs it. And WeWork, which I don't know if you have heard of, is a much more new kid on the block. Also offers co-working space. They've got one literally around the corner. If you look at the valuations of Regis versus WeWork at the moment, WeWork is about double the valuation of Regis. Regis has got more sites, more properties. It's been around for longer. Why is the WeWork valuation double the valuation of Regis? It's because what WeWork says it sells is not space, but a community. You go in, you use their space, they have free beer, they have meetups, they have events every day, they have an online network where you can say, I'm looking for a graphic designer, I'm looking for this. What they do is they make the connections. And the clients who are connected to each other are even more connected to WeWork because WeWork has enabled that to happen. So in terms of the energy sector, the more connected you are to your customers, the better. That is what they'll buy from. And as a final point on innovation, these entrepreneurs move real quick, but the nice thing is now it's easier to find them. So they are in co-working spaces, they are in universities. So when it comes to looking for kind of new and fresh talent, it's a lot easier to find them than when they were in the back of the garden shed. So hopefully that has been a view into my world, which is the small business world. And as I say, for us, what does a smarter Britain look like? It's global, it's super connected, it's very flexible. What does that mean for energy? Great things, because there's innovation to come, businesses using your data to form new businesses in their own right, but also in terms of selling to them, this absolute potential to make connections, have values and beliefs in which they believe in, and you've got 5 million small businesses who can make your customer base. So thank you very much for your attention.